It was a Saturday evening, and my parents had gone into town for some supplies. Lily was staying over at a friend's place, so I was alone. I didn't mind. I actually liked the quiet. It was getting close to sunset, and I realized I hadn't checked on the barn since the morning. We'd been having issues with raccoons lately, and my dad asked me to keep an eye out for any signs of them getting into the feed. I grabbed a flashlight and headed out. The barn is about a 5-minute walk from the house, and it was already starting to get dark. The sky was turning this deep orange color, and the shadows were getting longer. As I got closer to the barn, I noticed something strange. There was a weird, almost metallic smell in the air. I figured it was just the animals, but it felt off. When I reached the barn, I pushed the heavy door open, and it creaked loudly. I flicked on my flashlight and shone it around. Everything seemed normal at first. The usual hay bales, tools, and old tractor parts. But then I saw it. At the far end of the barn, near where we keep the old plow, there was someone. I couldn't make out much at first, just a shape. It looked like a person crouched down. I called out, "Hey, who's there?" No answer. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I took a few steps closer. That's when I saw them. The eyes. 2 glowing red eyes staring right at me. I froze. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. The eyes didn't blink. They just stared, unblinking, straight into my soul. My flashlight flickered, and for a second, I was plunged into darkness. When the light came back, the eyes were gone. I stood there shaking. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, maybe a reflection or something. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I slowly backed out of the barn, never taking my eyes off the spot where the eyes had been. As soon as I was outside, I ran. I didn't stop until I was back in the house, slamming the door behind me. I locked all the doors and windows, turning on every light in the house. I called my parents, but they didn't pick up. They were probably still at the store, and I didn't want to leave a message that would freak them out. I paced around the house trying to calm down. I kept telling myself it was nothing, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw those red eyes staring back at me. I didn't sleep much that night. When my parents got back, I told them about the raccoons but left out the part about the eyes. They'd think I was crazy or just trying to get out of my chores. The next morning, my dad and I went to check the barn again. Everything was normal. No signs of raccoons or anything else unusual. I started to doubt myself. Maybe it was just a trick of the light or my imagination running wild. But then, later that day, I found something that made my blood run cold. Near the spot where I saw the eyes, there was a small pile of old, rusted nails. I don't know how they got there, but I was sure they weren't there the day before. I showed my dad, and he just shrugged it off, saying it was probably nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. For the next few days, I avoided the barn as much as possible. Every time I had to go near it, I felt those eyes watching me. I didn't see them again, but I knew they were there, waiting. I started to think about who or what could have been in the barn that night. We don't have any neighbors nearby, and it didn't look like any animal I'd ever seen. And those eyes, they were too human. I even tried looking up stuff online, but I couldn't find anything that made sense. The more I thought about it, the more I started to believe that whatever I saw wasn't just my imagination. Then, one night, I overheard my parents talking. They thought I was asleep, but I couldn't help but listen. My dad mentioned something about an old man who used to live on our farm years ago. He said the man disappeared under mysterious circumstances and was never found. My mom told him to hush, saying it was just an old wives' tale and not to scare me or Lily with stories. But it was too late. I had already heard enough. I couldn't stop thinking about that old man and those red eyes. Was it possible that he was still here somehow? I didn't want to believe it, but nothing else made sense. I knew I had to find out more, even if it meant going back to the barn alone.